This video is going to be about building your entire project from the purchase of the bicycle to any kind of mechanical upgrades or turning it into an e-bike without having to install anything, without having to have tools, having to do really nothing other than understanding of the system and why it needs to be put together. So you don't need to put your hand into the dirt. You should check out my book and maybe buy 3-4 different books and courses that are available from your favorite personalities or creators, somebody you like to learn from, and study how it is done and do your research. I researched for my project, my Brompton Interceptor, for a year and a half before doing anything. And so I'm going to go through some of the details, not everything obviously of what I have in the book, but a little bit of an insight as to how to do it, because I certainly did not build anything. I only worked on the electronic part, which is basically connecting wires and plugging in plugs. And in addition, I did the tuning, which means manipulating the system via the computer. But as far as how the bike was built, it was built without any touch of my own self. Not that I don't have some tools or I would not be able to do most of it. I actually sometimes do things now that I have the bike, if it's just one thing. So I usually go down to the store only when I have a bunch of things that need to be done. Let me show you. The first mistake people make is to go to a generic store or to the Brompton Junction. A generic store is not going to be good if they even handle the Brompton. I mean, if you want to get a cheap bike, and if it's the Brompton, not a Moulton, you can get it off of Amazon. I'm on the Amazon website right now. You just type in Brompton and look at all the various things you can get. And Amazon is about as cheap as you are ever going to encounter from anybody. But your purpose, if you want a serious project, should not be to get it the cheapest way possible, nor to get it the fastest. Patience and the willingness to pay a little extra is going to benefit you on the long run tremendously. I can guarantee that. So the way I did it was, instead of going to the Junction or some store, I went to the most expert, most renowned local dealer who is also an expert repairman. And that's the most important part of a shop. What you're buying, if you just want to buy a bike, go to Amazon. Get it online. You can get a Birdie, you can get whatever, Moulton. On the other hand, if you are in New York, this place called Befold, it's in the East Village. And I'm giving you links below to all of these resources so you can find them on your own. The benefit of getting it from a classy place like Befold, which is just a hole in the wall little shop. It does not look anything like classy, but it has way more expertise in doing things than the Junction. Not to mention that it's not a Brompton property or subsidiary, and as a result they can install what the Junction is never going to install: your various electric kits, tuning parts and upgrades and whatever you want to do with your bike. And you may be buying something. I'm not necessarily talking about the Brompton, I'm talking about any bike really. You might be buying it thinking that you will never want to upgrade anything, you'll never want to change anything. But that's not how this turns out for a lot of people, especially for people who are following this channel, because there's nothing wrong with just buying a bike off of Amazon and just using it as is. But most of us want a little bit more. We want some upgrades. We want to upgrade the drivetrain, maybe the rims, the tires, the brakes. And not all of this is very simple to do. And even if it is, you may not want to spend time on it. You may not have the tools. You may not have the resources. Now, the one thing you have to deal with the small shop is they may charge you a little bit more than you would pay on the internet or at the Junction. I actually got a discount, and Befold had exactly the very rare metal plated frame I wanted, and they just had it, and I was prepared to pay a little extra for it, but I got a 10% discount. Back then, a nickel-plated 6-speed Brompton was $2,200. This is 2017, whereas I got it for $2,000, and I got a serious free tune-up right out of the door with no extra charge. So all the wires, brakes, everything, all the fittings were checked. The second step was to install a kit. A lot of people are frightened by all kits, especially a powerful open kit like the Grin, which is what you see here. It's called Grin Technologies, and I'm giving you a link below. They have a lot of kits, mostly just front and rear, geared, non-geared. It's not specific for a bike, except for the Brompton kit, which is specifically custom designed to work with the Brompton. And yet I did not install any of it other than this wheel, which of course Befold could have installed as well, but I just wanted to do it myself. But all of the rest of this stuff, these pieces, were installed at Befold as a part of, I had to pay for an hourly charge, labor charge, but it does not take long to install any of this stuff for somebody who is a master, somebody who has an easel and all of the right tools. That's the same thing with a more easily manageable prefab closed system, a user-friendly system like the Switch, which again requires the installation of a wheel. You'll have to install a sensor, and you have to install the controller apparatus at the top where the battery just snaps in. This is something you could do, but a lot of people would prefer it if somebody professional installed it. In this case, Befold would do it. The Junction is definitely not going to do it. A generic store from the neighborhood that happens to have some Bromptons but is not a specialist in high-end bicycles, especially folding and small wheel bikes, is probably not going to do it. They are mainly worried about the legal consequences, that if something happens, you could legally sue them, at least so long that you are making a payment for this on paper. If you are paying in cash, that's a solution you can offer, and that is one way of sort of guaranteeing that they will not have to worry about a lawsuit. But even then, most of them are not going to take the job, and the Junction is never ever going to install any kind of electric kits. They want you to buy an entirely new bike from them. And of course, that's close to $4,000 for the cheapest electric model that they have. Now, if you buy your bike off of the internet or the Junction, and then you show up at Befold with a smaller project with, say, an hour or 2 hours of labor charge, they are going to reject you. They make their money on either selling bikes where they can make as much as $1,000 or more than $1,000 in profit by selling you an expensive bike, such as a titanium or a Moulton or some more expensive bike, or if you have a very serious project like 10 hours of labor, and then they can make a good deal of money off of that. But if you just go down there with 2 hours of labor, they're not gonna like that. I would recommend that you also buy from a very high quality small place where you can directly speak with the person who would do the repairs and the tune-ups and the customization, because the whole idea is to have somebody who can do those things responsibly and not screw up, not scratch up or destroy the frame, not mess things up, basically. And so, obviously, if you want to do something as serious as this, I am showing you the masterpieces of Kinetics. Kinetics is in Scotland. To my knowledge, Brompton is not even permitting them to sell Bromptons anymore. So if you want them to build one of their amazing configurations, a roll-off rear hub with a custom triangle, a custom front with hydraulic disc brakes, especially the belt drive, which nobody else builds but them, at least for the Brompton, and which I haven't even seen on the Birdie, maybe on some of the Moultons, but for the most part it's not typical. So if you want something from them and you don't have a bike, you will have to buy it remotely from a local store where they can pick it up, and they will do the customization, and all the work is, everything's going to be installed. You don't need to do anything, and they are going to send you the bike wherever you are. If you are in the US, then obviously that's going to be a little while and some money as well. You may have to pay a tariff on this stuff, but I think that's entirely reasonable for what you're getting. So you have to pay, obviously. If you don't do the work, you'll have to pay for somebody else to do it. But if you had to do it, you would have to spend money on tools, and you would very likely screw up here and there, and that would cost you some money as well. Now, to complete an electric installation, such as either the green kit or any other kit, these are stores that are mechanical. Befold and Kinetics are both mechanical. They don't plug in wires or configure your computer. That is something you have to do. And if you have my book, you should have no problem doing it, either on a very easy user-friendly kit like the Switch, or with the green, which is what I am using. And so that is your job, but that does not require much of anything. You can connect the wires by hand, and configuring the computer is similar to working on your smartphone. Configuring, installing, using software. It's the same thing. Now, in addition, getting stuff that you might want to use to upgrade the bike, smaller things. I have made purchases from Dyno Kido. Some of it is good, some of it is not that good. This suspension piece, Japanese made, is really good. These stores are more iffy. They don't have much of any customer support. If you buy something from anything less than a very well established brand, such as for example H&H or John Cusack, other than that, sometimes they don't work out. And some of the stuff I bought from Dyno Kido really did not. In fact, one little clamp or something I bought here broke apart after a few weeks, and I just had to take that loss. You can certainly buy a ton of upgrades and little things from Amazon as well. Amazon has excellent customer support, and there is Etsy. Etsy is for the high-end things, but they sell a ton of stuff for all bikes, whether it's a Moulton, Brompton, Birdie, Bike Friday, any of the more established high-end hand-built bicycles have a third-party support following that exists on Etsy. And I actually bought something from London that never arrived, and Etsy was very helpful. They have excellent customer support. I was able to very quickly speak to a live person, and they refunded the money in no time. And I never even had to communicate with the seller, who seemed to have no interest in communicating with me anyway. But they have a ton of useful stuff. So Etsy, I definitely do recommend if you're a buyer. If you're a seller, they actually charge quite a bit of money for what they do, but they are reliable and they do sell good stuff. So very high quality hand-built things for any brand of high-end hand-built bicycle you might have. And then there is Alibaba. It's often very risky and highly questionable. Almost everything is Chinese made. There are some exceptions, but it's very cheap invariably. But how long it's going to last or how well it's going to work out, I don't know. I know some people have bought things from them, not expensive things like a triangle, like you see here, smaller things. These suspensions, they look very cheap and they are fake. Basically, most of what they sell are fake knockoffs of what other more expensive products try to give you. So there's a high-end Japanese made suspension spiral like this one. It's really $100, but they will sell you some very flimsy Chinese knockoff for $25 or $50. So you are on your own if you buy from Alibaba. But once again, the point is all of this stuff that I want to install, unless it's something really, really simple, I take it back to Befold. So once a year, once every 18 months or so, I take my bike down there. I have to have my tune-ups anyway. And then we replace the brake pads. Not much else. We check the brakes, we check everything, and any new stuff I want to install, they install, so I don't even need to worry about it. And I think that this is a good option for a lot of people may not have the mechanical expertise, or may not have the tools, or might be afraid of doing damage to the bike, to go this route, to have a reliable mechanic, either somewhere where you have to send in your bike, or preferably, if at all possible, in your own local area. In a big city, you can find them, and if you have them, if you bought the bike from them, they will support you for as long as they exist and for as long as you own the bike, which I think is a great way to go, and it's a great insurance on the long run.
I'll be back.